Excellent. All right.
Go
Well,
ahead, Dori.
I am Dore Chattel, and I am the executive director of the nonprofit Medical Education Institute, which does the Home Dialysis Central website and runs a very big Facebook group for home dialysis as well. So, our sponsor for this webinar is Fresenius Medical Care, and we are very pleased to have them. And we are really glad to be here to talk about travel on home dialysis right before the holidays, a time when people kind of like to travel often. So this topic gives us a chance to talk about how home therapies can give you back an important part of your life. So our subject matter experts tonight are Christina Gilchrist and Vanessa Evans and Jen Ravert, and I am your moderator. So I'm going to start with Christina. And Christina, tell us a little bit about you and your background and what kind of travel you like to do.
Okay. So I've been a kidney patient since I was 12. Do you want to hear kind of a skeletal version?
Little bit, yes, that would be
Okay.
great because then people will know, whether your experience or like their experiences or.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was 22, I got pregnant. And when I was 12, I found out I had a kidney disease. And 22, got pregnant and ended up going into seizures. And during seizures, I lost a portion of my eyesight and I went into kidney failure. My big brother gave me a kidney on December 9th of 2008. And then I rejected that kidney, sadly. And I went in center. So I went in center for 5.5 years. Then I got that amazing phone call for a second kidney, May 7th of 2016. I got my second kidney transplant. And that's when I decided to start living. That's when I met Michael, my care partner. And then shortly after I met him, I found out I was rejecting again. So it was time to kind of plan ahead. And this time I had time to plan. So him and I did research on PD and I decided I'm doing PD. And so sadly, I went to multiple doctors. They all told me no, I couldn't do it because my eyesight. But I kept pushing and I ended up going home on
Oh.
PD for 3 years. Those 3 years, guys, were life for me. PD was everything. I got diagnosed with abdominal adhesion, couldn't do PD anymore. So that's when I started chemo. I did hemo during the day, 4 days a week, 3.5 hours for about a year. And I'm now at 3 years of doing nocturnal home hemo. So I do dialysis 4 days a week for 7.5 hours. So that's my story.
Awesome. That is really helpful, Christina, and I am sorry that those kidneys didn't last you longer.
It's okay. I did end up finding out it wasn't rejection, it was disease reoccurrence when I
I
was
that
finally, yeah,
that
when I
was
was,
actually where my head went. I didn't think it was rejection. Did you have FSGS by any chance?
no, I have recently been diagnosed with C3G, but I have a
Oh,
strain of
oh.
it I have a strain of it that's never been seen before.
Oh, well, isn't that exactly the time you want to be in
Unique.
unicorn?
I try to keep life like tricky.
Well, you just taught me something new because I'm 35 years in this field. I've never even heard of C3G, so now I
It's
have to
actually
explain it.
very similar to FSGS.
Ah, okay. Okay. Well, I just know that FSGS, especially when you're young, under 30, and have a transplant, it does have a pretty high rate of recurring. But I think there are also new
Yeah.
meds for that. But that's not our topic for today. So I'll stop on that and I'll go to Vanessa, my dear friend for years and years. And Vanessa also runs the advocacy program at Fresenius, which is awesome. And all of the advocates that we have worked with have been fabulous.
Well, thank you. So, great to be here with my friends, Dory and Jen and Christy in the background there, and Christina, who's an advocate on our team. Very happy to be here. But more importantly, I'm a dialysis patient. Some of you may or may not know I've been on dialysis for 28 years. So I was in center for 8 years, and I'm actually going on 21 years this December. So I guess I'm going to have to up my number to 29 coming December that I will have been on dialysis. I am highly sensitized now, meaning it's very hard for me to find a match. but I have always been someone that is like, I'm not going to let dialysis get me down. And that involves travel. I come from a kind of a diverse background, and we always traveled as a family. My mother is originally from like Egypt, via Venezuela, etc. My father is from New York, via Florida, right? So we just always were visiting family or friends and vice versa. And so when I was diagnosed with kidney failure, I was like, "Oh god, I'm never gonna be able to, like, travel again," right? That's gonna be the end of what we do, or what I do, and I've learned now that it does not have to be, right? There's a lot of planning that needs to be involved. I think that's what we're gonna talk about today. I love to hear that you got, it sounds like, an RV, Wendy. We have an advocate, a couple advocates on our team actually that have RVs. They travel, they actually
Oh,
live in their RV, right?
yes, they
Um,
sold their house.
yeah, they
Don and Jimmy Bates. They are
right. Dawn and Jimmy,
so
and I
terrific.
Dawn might even be on now, but
Maybe.
so it is very possible to do that and to live a life. Look, I have a little dog with me here, so I'm trying to keep her quiet. If you see something moving, it's my little dog here. Um, but I'm excited to share kind of tips and tricks and how to prepare to go on a trip. I think you've got a good crew here with Christina, who's done both PD and HHD and is legally
Mhm.
blind, by the way, and still travels all over the place. And then, we'll hear from Jen now, I'm sure, with all her tips too.
Absolutely. In fact, Jen is next. So
Mhm.
Jen works with me. She's on the staff of MEI, but before that, what did you do?
So before that, I was a dialysis nurse. I trained home hemodialysis and PD for about 10 years. I was also, well, I am also the daughter of a dialysis patient who did PD, and then my grandmother also. And my best friend, I just texted her and told her to join.
Good.
She did home hemo for the better part of 20 years as well. And I actually didn't meet her through work. I met her at the mall, and she ended up being chair buddies with my grandmother. So it was just this big wide circle of
Small world.
nephrology that landed on my head, and I have never left and never will.
Wow.
Yeah,
Great nurse.
it's funny because I got sucked into nephrology when I went to work for Edie Oberly, who's she was the home hemo helper for her husband, Terry, and started a company that was going to do a lot of things, but ended up just focusing in renal. And that was it. I went to work for her and I have stayed there ever since. So many, many years. So, Jen, I was going to start questions with you because you have trained people to do PD and home hemo. What sort of advice did you give those folks during training or when they came to you and said, okay, but what about travel? I would really like to go somewhere. What sorts of things did you suggest that they
I
do?
was so hoping to get to answer this question. I am a big
Yeah.
fan of teaching the staycation first. And by
Mhm.
that, I mean that I always encouraged patients who wanted to travel to book a hotel room in our actual town or a nearby town or someplace close, driving distance. And that way, you can have the full experience of moving your system and your setup and your routine to a different place without also having your training wheels completely off and being in a scary situation. Once you can conquer it on a small scale, then it's much easier to bring it to a different scale because you've already done the hardest part, and that's readjusting your routine. So I taught the staycation and encouraged it.
I
It,
think
I,
that
yeah,
yeah, I was just add on to that, Jen. I love that idea. And I say the same thing. And you don't even have to go to a hotel. You literally could go to your neighbor across the
Yep,
street,
right.
right?
A friend's
And
absolutely.
just
house. Yeah.
figure out that you've got to take, it doesn't matter if you go for 1 day or 6 days, right? You need the machine, supplies, etc. And so
Mm-hmm.
doing kind of a little dry run, what does that look like for me? And you don't have to pay anyone or anything. Just what does it look like? Can I go to a neighbor, a close friend,
Right.
etc., and see what that's like? Is honestly huge. I wish I did not learn that way. I learned kind of the hard way because I went away and then I realized, oh my God, I forgot my saline. Right? And it's like, oh geez,
That
little
that
things.
is the sort of thing that a staycation helps with. It's
Exactly.
yeah, that and having really good lists. But
Yeah.
there were some other tips that you had for
I would
traveling.
say that's my tip is you have to have a solid list. You have to have everything on it, and literally we always say we check it 3 times. And that's
Mhm.
because Mike checks it twice and I do it once.
Yep,
That's
yep,
almost Santa Claus themed.
absolutely. I know
Perfect for holiday travel.
we
Yeah.
are the biggest fans of checklists, and I know that people get going and they're like, "Oh, I don't need that anymore. I know everything. I know all of the steps." Pilots who fly every single day
Yes.
use a checklist every single day, just to make sure that they don't put other people's lives at risk. And why put your own life at risk? Use checklists. Checklists are awesome. Anyway,
Can I
I know.
add to that, Tori?
Ye-
I think a checklist is awesome, and I obviously learned the hard way. And I use the checklist now. But you know the other thing that I have started to do that is also really helpful. Some people like things outwritten. I've started to take pictures.
Oh, good idea.
Um,
That's awesome.
and so that has been really, really helpful because I do something that I used to not do before, which I'll tell you guys. So actually, Christina and Mike, I learned from Christina because Christina and Mike would make what you guys call the burritos, Christina,
Yes,
right?
the
Yeah.
packs.
The
Yep.
packs. So Christina and Mike started to do that, and Christina and I are both hemo patients. So just so you know, we're talking about hemo supplies, and so you would take a blue chalks and you wrap your needles, your gauze, whatever it is that you need for one treatment. Everything is in one. So I love that because it's kind of a pull and go. And so we create like a little assembly line, and we put right. I'm gone for 7 days. So if I'm gone for 7 days, I'm gonna have supplies for 8 or 9 days just in
Absolutely.
case, right? So I
Yep.
do a little assembly line, but what I was going to say that I do now that I've been doing now the last probably 3 or 4 years, if I can, and it really depends on where you're going. So if I'm going to visit, my sister-in-law, my mother, a friend, I actually will pack up a box of supplies that has all my saline, that has those burrito rolls, that has extra gauze, tape, etc. And I ship the box to get there before I get there so that
Nice.
it's one less thing that
So
I
you
have to
can
bring.
double check that it
I
arrived and
double
then
check. I know that it's there. I mean, I'm still gonna
yeah.
have to travel with the machine and, whatever else, but it's maybe I'm just traveling with the machine, right? Because all the supplies will be sent if you're traveling in the United States, right? They'll
Mhm.
all be sent there. And then if I have pre-shipped my ancillary supplies, then I know they're there. And it's just
Right.
kind of like one less thing that I have to bring. So sometimes I forget to do it, and you do have to pay out of pocket. I should say no one's going to pay for that. You have to do it yourself. But if the more advanced that you do it, the kind of the cheaper it is, if it takes 2 weeks to get there, etc. It doesn't matter. But I feel like that has been so huge. But I have learned that not only do I have to have a checklist, but I have to like take pictures. So I'm like, wait a minute, what did I send? Right. And I can kind
Oh, good
of visually
idea. Yes.
be like, oh yeah, I did send that. Right.
Yep.
Because sometimes I check the list that I'm like, did I put it in the box and send it? I don't remember. So, little
Yeah.
tip.
And I'm sorry, I forgot what did you just talk about, Vanessa?
The burritos that you do, and how I ship my supplies ahead of
Oh, yeah.
time before I get there.
So I was gonna say, yeah. So I was gonna say, me and Mike, we have our shipments always delivered earlier than our arrival day. So we don't get on the plane to leave until we have confirmation, including a picture from the hotel
That
that my
is
supplies are there.
That is
such a
smart.
good idea because you do not want to get where you're going and then find out, oops, yeah, those went to Kansas and we're in California.
Yeah, that
Nobody
is
wants
that
that.
is the game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Most hotels, and a couple of tips with that, if you go to a big hotel, um, they might put it in like a FedEx storage. and they might then try to charge you
Mm,
by package for holding it. And so it is a good idea. And by the way, they're a private company. They're allowed to do whatever they want. They don't fall under the DOT guidelines, the Department of Transportation. So
mm,
technically, they are allowed to charge. However, I should say that in the 20 something years that I've been doing this, I find people to be humanistic. And if I tell them, these are my life saving dialysis supplies, the
mhm,
Department of Transportation even lets them fly for free. Do you think you can help me out? Blah, blah, blah. They're usually really good about that. If you don't go to a big hotel, they might put them, in the back. I like to say, put my name on it. So, care of Vanessa Evans, right? And I will say to the bellman desk, because then it will stay with the bellman and not necessarily go in the back. And it takes a little more work because I call the hotel in advance. So, like Christina, you'll call and you'll make sure it gets there. But you even
mhm,
might call and have them noted on your reservation. These supplies are supposed to come on Tuesday, XYZ. Can you call me when they come? It is an extra leg of work, and I will tell you that the last trip I went on, I had a very hard time getting my supplies delivered because
mm.
nobody wanted to sign for them, believe it or not.
Oh,
Yep. Nobody wanted to sign for them. And so if I hadn't done what I do, which is having it come in advance, asking them to call me, checking in on it, calling the hotel, they would have denied them. I would have arrived and there would have been no supplies there. So you
Ugh,
have to be an advocate for your supplies and call and check in frequently. Nobody is doing that but you, right?
right,
So make
right.
yep.
sure that you can
Well,
do that.
another thing that occurs to me when you talk about hotels is that it actually is pretty important to stay in a hotel versus something like we do when we travel. We usually stay in a VRBO or an Airbnb, but the problem with those is that you can't get supply delivery early. There isn't anywhere for the supplies to go. There aren't storage rooms.
Yep.
So
If
sticking
I'm
with a
gonna jump
place
in for
that,
you,
yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna jump in. I've had the predicament, and the solution that we were told and we found was, instead of having it sent to where you're staying, have it sent to
Oh,
the nearest dialysis center,
oh,
and you will
that's
be able to go.
clever.
You can go pick it up for free and then take it
I
to wherever
like
you're staying.
that. All right, that's a good workaround because the nice thing about the VRBOs and the Airbnbs is that you can get a kitchen and a living room and,
Yep.
some amenities that hotel rooms don't tend to have.
So
That's a
Dory,
really good suggestion.
just to add to that, I think that's a great suggestion, Christina. I remember once we rented a house and the supplies came early and there were like 25 boxes. And of course, the people that are renting it before are like, what are we supposed to do with all of this? Right. So it is a real thing. I would also suggest that if you are going to have your supplies delivered to the closest dialysis center, that you call that dialysis
But
Yes,
center,
yes.
Yes, alert them.
right? And you make
Definitely let them
sure,
know.
definitely let them know. They'll be like, "Who's Christina?" Right? Like,
otherwise,
"Who's
there'll be a
Vanessa?"
nurse like
And
me
they,
having a panic attack, wondering
yes,
when you're
right,
coming. Yeah.
right, Jen. What do you suggest? Right?
Well, definitely let them know. Honestly, I've had people forget something, and they were people I did not know at all and who were not part of my clinic at all, but happened to have been traveling into my area, and they have needed saline or they have needed tape and gauze. And I would be really hard pressed to find any dialysis nurse, any home dialysis nurse who would not be extremely helpful and sympathetic under those circumstances.
Yeah, then the trick comes in if it's a Sunday.
The Sunday is
Because
the hardest
most,
part.
yeah, Sunday is the hardest.
If
So
it's a
it's
Which
Sunday,
is
if it's a Sunday, get on a support group
right.
and
Right.
see if there are any patients in the area that could run you some
Yes.
saline. I'd do it in
Uh-huh.
a heartbeat.
That's the nice thing about the group being, I think we're at 8,500 people, is that there is somebody almost everywhere. And this does come up periodically, uh-oh, I forgot my whatever. And,
Yep. But
often
but
somebody
that
has.
being said, and I think it's a great background, right? You need to always have the plan B just in case. I try not to fly on Sundays, to be quite honest with you,
Yeah,
if I'm arriving somewhere, because
that's a
I know
good
that
point.
everything is closed.
Yep.
Right.
And so it is important. And I always, always, always try to dialyze the night before I leave, right?
Yes, that gives you a
So that
cushion.
it gives you a cushion, you're prepared. So they're like just little tricks that you can do so that you're feeling a little more safe and confident when traveling, because
Mhm.
I mean, it's hard to be a traveler these days, let alone a dialysis traveler.
Yes, it does add a layer of complexity that most people don't have to deal with. I was going to ask each of you, let's start with Christina. What was your first trip that you took on dialysis and how did that go?
My very first one was with PD, and I actually flew to Arizona, and I took it with me on the plane as a carry-on.
The
How
cycler
insane is
or
that?
or
The
your
cycler.
Okay, good.
The
That's the
cycler
nice thing
was,
about PD cyclers is they're small enough to fit in the cabin of an airplane.
yep. So I put it right on with me. And honestly, I didn't know it could be easy. I actually traveled without. I traveled in center, and I traveled from center to center. I was going to Washington State, and I was going for my sister's wedding. And so I scheduled my appointment the day before, and I showed up to that appointment, and I was like, "Hey, I have an appointment." And they were like, "Oh, we're really, really busy. Why don't you go down to the coffee shop at the end of the way and drink a coffee, and we'll let you know if we can fit you in." So she should never suggested fluid if she's saying it,
Right?
if
That
we can. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. But so they did not fit me in. I ended up actually doing dialysis while my sister was getting married.
Oh
Oh,
no, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. That's terrible. That
Yep.
is those stories like that, and a member of our group who's unfortunately no longer with us missed both of her parents' funerals because it just wasn't possible to arrange travel as quickly as she would have needed it when she was in center.
Oh
And
man.
at home that you generally can plan ahead. It's probably still, what would you say is the fastest, either one of you, Vanessa or Christina can answer this, but what would you say was the fastest you were able to arrange a trip and leave on home dialysis?
I think it always takes some planning.
Right. Lead
So
time is important to get the
lead time is
supplies.
important. So I think, for instance, if you have a family member, like my sister-in-law lives in Florida, she lets me leave supplies at her house, right?
Yes.
So I know that I could basically take my machine, right, and get there, and I probably have 1 or 2 days
Mm-hmm.
of treatment
Mm-hmm.
that I could do while I'm there because it's a family member and she's letting me be there. The other thing is I take a picture because I need to know expiration dates. Make sure you're with your in expiration date. But it's also inside her house. It's safe. It's
Right.
good. So something like that, I feel like I probably could do pretty easily. Only knowing if I'm going to get more supplies. Technically, in order to order your supplies, I believe you need a 60-day, and I'll check it just to be sure. But I think you need for at least HHD, I'm pretty sure it's a 60-day leadway. And PD might be
Thought it was
30.
30 domestic, but I'm not,
I'm
I would
I'm
have
gonna
to look.
I'm literally gonna look it up right now
Okay,
just to
cool.
be sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd
But
be
so
great.
that does tell you something that you're gonna have to at least have a 30-day leadway to understand when
Well,
you can get your
yeah, and
supplies.
that's where the travel trailer comes in. If you like to go on the weekend, go for a week, you can just load your supplies from home into your trailer and you don't have that lead time to order the supplies for traveling. So it does shorten your planning time as compared to something like a cruise or an airplane.
Michael's put a thing together where we have all of our breakables in one container and all of our unbreakable supplies. And
Clever.
we keep them packed all the time. We do
Hmm.
check, we do rotate if anything expires, it never does. but we do check and make sure. But we literally could grab our machine, the little things that go on it, and we could be ready to go.
That is very useful in case of not so much fun travel necessarily, but emergency evacuation travel to
That's
have
where having a
planned ahead
2 week
like that.
backup supply
Yep.
or a 1 week backup supply can really come in handy too. Is if you know if there's an emergency or something comes up, you have to evacuate. You need to be somewhere in a hurry. You know, if you can get yourself a few days buffer that you already have in an emergency, it's always good to have it.
Here in Utah, we worry about that, and we keep a couple supplies up at our property. So if we had to leave here, we could be good up there for at least a week, and we just rotate those
Right.
out and watch the expiration dates too.
Right. Yeah. So planning ahead is definitely part of the deal. And I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch it, Vanessa, when you said what the lead time is for home hemo.
60 days.
It is 60. Did it used to be 30? Am I remembering it wrong?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think 30
thought it
days
was
is for
30 too.
PD.
I thought it was
Might be
30.
different. Okay. I
Well,
think I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
we'll check our travel document and see if we need to update it because it would be good to know. But,
Yep.
that's a long time, for a funeral that isn't going to work because you don't get to plan those ahead.
I will say that, the customer service team
Yes.
at Fresenius Medical Care are incredible. And obviously, if God forbid there was an emergency, there was a tragedy, there's something you have to do,
Yes.
I'm
Right.
sure they would, work with you on a step-by-step basis to try to get you what you need. And similar to what Christina was saying earlier, I mean, they would try to, either get something from the clinic or get you into a clinic,
Right. I
etc.
think that they would try to help you out with supplies that are local to where you're going.
Exactly.
I think also if you kind of have a short window of time and you have a couple days, if you do back-to-back treatments before you go, then sometimes you don't even have to take your machine with you. Just go do that funeral, next day fly out and go home.
That is a really good point. A quick trip you could do
Yes.
without bringing a machine as long as you are certain it will be quick because you don't want that to, drag out. But yeah, that's a really good point. Um, okay, so Christina, you told us about your first trip. Vanessa, how about you? It sounds like your first trip was when you were in center. How was
Yes,
that
and it
different from traveling with home hemo?
horrible. The first, I mean, I'll be honest with you, the first year we went to Florida again, I have a lot of family there. Um, and it was actually kind of similar to Christina, where I was booked, they knew I was coming. They didn't tell me to go get coffee, but I think I sat in the waiting room waiting to get on for probably 2 or 3 hours. And then I finally got on, and it was very depressing, to be quite honest with you, because I felt very much like I'm missing the day. Everybody's at the pool. I'm sitting here waiting. I just felt like there was a lot of waiting, and then I didn't feel well. And it wasn't on my schedule. And there was no control. It's like that loss of control that we talk about. And
Mm-hmm.
so, the next trip that I went on, I think it's when I went to Cape Cod and I forgot my saline. And I had my nurse, she's so sweet. She literally drove and dropped off saline for me. That was
Oh, that is so
unbelievable.
nice.
But you also have to remember that I had started this like 20 years ago. There weren't as many patients as there are now. And the network and even the customer service and everything that we have going now. I'm a professional traveler now, and I certainly know how to go. And I try to prepare everything a couple of weeks in advance. If it's at a friend's place or even a hotel that they can track, I try to send that ancillary box ahead of time so that the only thing that I'm bringing is really the machine, because all the supplies will be there and my ancillary supplies will be there. If you are bringing your ancillary supplies, meaning your needles, your gauze, your tape, mask, glove, you need to pack all of that in a separate suitcase from your clothes.
Right.
So you can't put your ancillary supplies and your clothes together. I guess you could,
You
but
could, but then you would pay for the suitcase because it is just
You
medical
may run,
supplies.
it always depends on who checks you in, but
Right.
it will fly for free if it's separate. The Department of Transportation has the guidelines for traveling with dialysis equipment, whether it's PD or HHD. And you are allowed to travel for free with your medical device. And by law, airlines have to help you with that. And I can say they're much better than they used to be. I feel like they know way better, but get there with lots of time, right, Christina?
And
Oh, yeah.
it's a really good idea to have a printout that them flying the machine and the medical flying for free, because I've been questioned a lot on that, and just having a printout is really nice.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we do have a document that has that all in it. And I think that Next Stage has one as well. So it should be, pretty available to get. So Jen, have you had patients who've had travel emergencies and called you in a panic? And was there any sort of commonality between what sorts of issues they ran into?
I've had people not have something with them, like forget something significant at home. And I ended up getting into the habit of telling people, as you learn how to prepare to pack for trips and make lists for trips, every time you use something, take another one and put it to the side. Every single thing, then put another one to the side. Then you actually get a good idea of exactly how much stuff you're using. It may say in your instructions you need 1 drawing needle, when in reality you're using 3 drawing needles. If that's the way that it works, then for every one, put one aside, and then you know what you need per day. I've never had a patient call me from Cape Cod asking for a case of saline. I would have absolutely taken the opportunity, got myself a nice lobster while I was out there. Would have driven out.
Why not, right?
Why not? Mine as well. But I've heard of similar situations like that. I would be hard pressed to hear of any. It'd be very hard to say no to that kind of a situation, especially when someone's trying so hard to just do something normal, like go out of town. We try to be supportive of that. I've had patients have two homes or multiple places where they dialyze that are all approved under their waters, but they have to get like updated waters when they move to their new location. So some people have their lake house and then their winter house and their summer house, and they want to go between the three. And you have to make sure that everybody has water before they can start using Pure Flow again, and we have to be using bags until then and that kind of stuff. It depends on how long you're going to be staying somewhere, but if you're going to be somewhere for longer, than a couple of weeks, it's a lot of people like to get that checked out and done.
Okay. I just tried to put in the comments the traveling with a dialysis machine PDF from the DOT. I know, Dory, you have it on your website, and I know we do too. But if you want to look,
that's a great resource for people.
And
Thanks
this
for
is the one
sharing.
that Christina was talking about, right? To actually have it printed out and show people, or even just have it on your phone these days, and you can just
Well, and that was Neelcha and Home Dialyzers United who advocated to get the DOT to put that in writing to make it easier for all of you to travel. And she also, her tip for travel was bring lots of $5 bills and use them a lot to tip people for moving your boxes from one place to another, because
and that still holds true today,
absolutely,
right?
That was excellent.
Money is money. It
Yes.
helps. Absolutely.
Just think through, all right, I'm going to go from my house, maybe in an Uber or a taxi, to say an airport, and I'm going to have my machine, and I'm going to have whatever boxes I didn't ship ahead, and I'm going to have my suitcases, and it's way too much for me to manage. So I'm going to go from there to there, and then I'm going to have to get from the airport inside to the gate, and then on the other end, I'm going to have to be able to pick it up off of the luggage conveyor, and
there's a lot of planning you have to think about.
Just think about the steps and bring a $5 bill for each one.
Energy is expensive, and sometimes having the energy is worth the $5.
Right.
saving
It really
energy.
is true. And you know, even a couple of weeks ago, I went to the Atlanta airport. That's a huge airport.
Mhm.
Oh, it
There's
is.
a
With
lot
trains going through
a
it.
lot of walking, and even just to get to the Uber, it was
Mm-hmm.
like a pretty long walk. So I really do highly recommend for dialysis patients to think about what's going to be on the other end. You
Mm-hmm.
know, how are you going to get there? Is it worth to get a car service just because then they pull up and you know that they're right there? Sometimes it is more expensive, but I mean, I can't lug that machine
Yep.
myself, right?
Right.
So it is you know, it is something to think about. You're planning what do you do when you get to the airport? What do you
Mm-hmm.
do when you go get your bag? Where are you going to put it? I do find the little airline trolleys that they have at the airline, those fit very well. Your machine and your supplies, you
I
can fit
swear that
everything
thing
on
used to
them.
be a quarter.
I know it's not anymore. It's six to eight
Wow.
dollars depending on it is $6 to $8 depending on where you are. And I
So
would also recommend to bring an extension cord. Um,
yes, a
I
power
would not
strip.
yeah, I
No?
would not plug in the machine in an extension cord.
Right.
That should be in a, you know,
A
directly into
wall
a
socket.
wall. Yeah.
Right.
But
But
it's
other
yeah, you want to have your phone, I
mm,
don't know, you have a heating blanket, like other
yeah,
things that you might need.
We have a rule. We don't get to the airport any less than 3 hours before our flight
good
because
plan.
I want to give them plenty of time to process my machine and make sure it's
Mhm.
on that plane before we take off. So rushing,
Absolutely.
if you
Yep.
get there short, you don't know that it's going to make it. So simple little things you can do like that. Also, like Vanessa was saying, I really recommend getting wheelchair access. I get wheelchair access at any airport I can.
Spoon theory is very, very relevant when you are traveling with a lot of stuff. Did you want to explain what that is in case anybody doesn't know?
So spoon theory is this way of explaining the way that people with chronic illness deal with having a finite amount of energy in any given day. So it kind of started out with like using a spoon, like someone had a service for 12 spoons, and a spoon is worth 1 unit of energy. So it takes, 1 spoon to make breakfast and 1 spoon to get dressed. But there's a cost to that. You don't necessarily get those spoons back. And when you have a chronic illness, no matter what the chronic illness is, you don't just magically regenerate new spoons out of the blue. Healthy people that don't have chronic illness, they could take a sip of water and suddenly regain spoons because now they're hydrated and they feel good. People that are running low on spoons can't do that. So you have to kind of worry about your conservation of energy as much as possible. I have an invisible disability, and when I flew home on Sunday, I used wheelchair assistance in the airport. I had to do it. It was the first time that I had to do it. I did not have the spoons to walk, and I also used early boarding. And I felt a little strange doing it because again, I have an invisible disability. It's not something that people that's not obvious. But it really did save me a lot of energy, especially with delays. So now that I know that this is true, I highly endorse this idea. Even if you can physically
Yeah.
do it, save your
Just
save your energy.
yeah, save your spoons for the fun part.
Save your
And
Yeah.
for the phone part.
don't feel bad about using the wheelchair, even if you don't usually use a wheelchair. Even if in your day-to-day life you walk the places you need to walk, but you don't want to burn yourself out. An
And
airport,
airports are
where it
huge.
feels like they are
Airports are huge. It's a
6
lot of
miles
walking.
long. They go on and on and on. And sometimes you think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to B32. It's not that far. And then you get there and they're like, ha, 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 we were kidding. You have to
Your
go to
gate is changed somewhere.
B67. And there are
Hmm.
airports that are known for that sort of thing. O'Hare is one of them. And save your spoons. Use the wheelchair. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So I was going to ask each of you dialysis travelers, what was your biggest travel challenge and how did you overcome it?
Well,
Vanessa
I
has to be her size and that machine.
Oh gosh.
what are you talking about? I'm like 10 feet tall. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of trial and error, to be quite honest with you. And yes, I'm not particularly big or strong. I'm lucky that I have a wonderful family, you know, that will help me. I have traveled alone with the machine too, and I think what Christina said holds so true. It's if you can have in your mindset, it's going to be okay. And I need to get there in plenty of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a plan B set up just in case. Then I feel so much better. But you know, I'll give you you know, what I just talked to you about when we first started. I was supposed to be at ASN last week. It's the government shutdown. I thought at 9:30 at night, oh my God, what if I get stuck? You know, and I don't have anywhere to dialyze, or it's going to just take me time. I decided not to go. And so I do think that as patients, and that was hard for me, kind of like Jen, what you were saying, I've never said no before. I'm always like, I'm here, I'm gonna do it. And I try to do it all. I just, you know, I said no, and that was okay. I had to put myself as a patient first. And so I ended up not going. But you know, I think my greatest like advice or like thing to say to patients is it will be okay, you know, make the right decision for you and really allow yourself that time. You know, like get there early, bring the money because you may have to tip people. And I always like to know that I have a backup. Like I like
Mm-hmm.
to know what is going to be the dialysis center that I may have to go to. Doesn't mean I'm going to call them or anything like that, but at least like I can call and be like, I know XYZ clinic is near me, and I'd like to try to get in there, right? I
I
mean,
was
I think
I was going to say that too, Vanessa. I always look up the hospitals and the clinics in the
Good
area. So if
idea.
I do have something, I know where I'm going.
yeah,
Exactly. Because if you are having some sort of an issue, that is not the time when you want to be trying to
Nope.
find something under pressure. So just
Basically,
having everything
you
set.
don't want to be in a hurry. So you want to kind
No,
of deal with things before they come.
that is
exactly.
so true, Christina. I think you and I feel the same about this. Like anything that we can do to prepare and get ready, to check
Mm-hmm.
off the to take a photo, to make sure it arrives before we arrive, right? We get to the airport early. We, in my head, and Christina, you're probably the same. I'm always kind of checking a little list in my head. It's like it's constant. There's a lot, you know, and then once I'm there and I'm settled, oh, I can breathe again. And then it comes up again trying to get home. Home, I know everything is there, but I still have to get the machine and supply, you know, get whatever supplies back. But there is a little more sense about I'm going home than I'm going to an unknown. But I don't think people should not do it. You know, I think if you
Totally
have
do it.
a, you know, if you can travel with time, with a friend, a companion, a place that you maybe know, like we said, not far, I say try it. Like it really does make you feel like you are in charge of your own destiny and you're like other people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think something really big to understand is there are so many people you can reach out to. There are clinics, there are hospitals, there are groups you can become a part of. There's so many things you can reach out for backup if needed.
Yeah, that is a really good point. You're not really ever alone.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you're not members of our Facebook group, we hope you join because we love everybody in it and it's a
Mhm.
really great resource.
And I just added into our webinar
Oh,
chat
awesome.
here that we do have a website that's traveling with home hemodialysis, and you can look at home, and there's even one for peritoneal as well. So you can go in there and you can take a look. It actually gives step by step, you know, things to consider when
Mm-hmm.
traveling, and you know what to do first, what to do second. There is even a little draft of if you are going out of the country and you need to bring supplies like a doctor's letter.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of that information in there, which I think helps, right? Because I know when I travel
Which
there's nothing
a
going.
lot of
Go ahead.
that stuff you don't know it's going to be a problem until it becomes a problem. So going on those pages and actually reading it ahead of time will actually help you to avoid a lot of those problems.
Exactly the intent. That was the intent when we did the one that Christy posted as well, just to, make things easier.
I
Yep.
have an interesting, a couple of years ago, like I was very interested in, I really want an RV. It's a thing I still want, I still think about. And I know a lot of dialysis patients like to take RVs on trips. I just wanted to throw out there that it is possible to rent an RV. I have done it. I have
Mhm.
gone to many states in a rented RV. And if in terms of storage, because of course, I rented an RV and thought about the home dialysis storage issue.
Right?
It is a very reasonable way of handling the storage things with the travel. It really does fit all of the things. I just wanted to let people know that they are rentable. You don't have to necessarily go out and buy one if you can't. It was actually less than a hotel room would have cost me for my family for the week.
No, I think that's wonderful. And I also just put again in the chat here, we do have a PDF that kind of goes through all those pieces. And there is a section actually about traveling with an RV. And
Yes.
it talks a little bit about, how to travel basically with an RV, the voltage that you may need, and like the power, proper grounding. I'm reading the requirements right now, traveling with an RV. So I think that's certainly helpful. And I just put that PDF in there if people wanted to take a look at it. Like one of the tips that they say is when you're traveling in a camper van or an RV, don't weigh yourself inside. The floors can be flexible, so your weight may vary. Like things that I didn't really think
Ooh,
about, right?
that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not an expert for RV travel. Let me give that disclosure, but it's good to know. And I know we have plenty of patients, including Christina and Mike, who do a lot of interesting travel as well. Camping. I see you guys, Christina. You guys go camping all the time.
Yeah, we do.
The scale thing is brilliant. I don't think I've ever thought about the scale difference.
Yeah.
Right, 100, you're completely right. And now I'm thinking like, well, if you weigh yourself while holding like a 5 liter bag, and then then you weigh yourself without the 5 liter bag, we know that the bag is 5 kilos. So that might be
You can
another way of
subtract.
recalibrating
Right.
a scale while traveling
Totally.
different.
Totally. Yeah, but there's considerations that you have to take, right? There are considerations that you have to take. And so I think it is important to, take a look at there are resources out there. This is why we did this webinar, but there are a lot of resources on the MEI website, on the Fresenius website. And I would encourage patients to look through all those pieces so that you can learn a little bit, including videos and, kind of some tips for travel.
Our website is homedialysis.org. So that's Home Dialysis Central. And that's the Facebook group is also it's actually the Home Dialysis Central Facebook discussion group, which is a mouthful and a half. Otherwise, I would just see if you all have any last tips you haven't already emptied your brain of to share.
Can I add something? So people always say they have fear of going on vacation, or the fear of losing this, or the fear of this. I think as dialysis patients, all we want to do is feel like we're living. When you're
Mhm.
feeling fear, you're living. So don't let that fear stop you from living. Go enjoy that.
I love that. You're so right.
Dory says
Right.
that fear is excitement in disguise, like nervousness, anxiousness.
Yes,
And
it's
sometimes you can reframe it in your head and tell
yeah.
yourself that you're actually really excited to do something and not as anxious as you think you are. And instead, you're excited. And if you trick your brain into realizing that you're feeling excitement and not anxiousness, it makes it better.
It does. My older daughter's an actor, and she used to get stage fright, and I told her that years ago. I'm like, you're not afraid. you're excited to go. You feel the same way. You know, your heart rate speeds up and your mind goes fast and you might be breathing a little faster and you can tell yourself, "Oh, I'm really afraid, I'm really nervous," but maybe you're not. And actually sometimes on the machine, especially in center, if the blood pump is too high, you can actually get physical anxiety. Your blood is being pushed through your vessels so fast that it feels like you're anxious. And you're not really, but it still feels like you are. So I'm excited to be almost done or whatever.
It looks like the PDF that I put in didn't work. What I can do is I can send it over to you, Dory, and maybe you can send it out to your registrants if they put in
Oh,
emails
good idea.
to
I think
register.
we might be able to do that.
Yeah, it is a good
And
PDF.
then
It
we could
goes,
post it to the Facebook group and then we've hit everybody.
yeah, and it goes kind of by land and sea,
Oh, terrific.
etc.
Yeah, that would be
So
great.
apologies, but the website does have a lot of this information, so I would recommend people to go.
Mhm.
I would say the last minute two tips that I always make sure to have. I would get a portable scale, like a
Oh.
small, thin little portable scale. I have one that's really flat
Mhm.
that I can just pack into a
And it's all
suitcase.
metal, it's not like glass and gonna break or
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I wish I had it here with me, but it is, maybe this big. And it comes in like a soft case, right? So it's protected.
oh,
Yeah. I know. I should look to see. I do have it
what a
right
good
here if you want me to
idea.
get it. But
That's like
it's
the
a
perfect gift for somebody on
it's
dialysis who
it's a
travels.
perfect gift for
It's
the traveling
Christmas is
dialysis
coming up, y'all.
patient. And then obviously a portable blood pressure cuff, right? Like you should have that as well.
Extra
They're
battery.
now a lot of these things are now,
That's my note
Bluetooth
for
and
next month.
digital. Yeah, exactly. And so that's really important. I will also say that many hotels, if you forget your scale, they do sometimes have scales like in the exercise
Mhm.
rooms that you can go down and do that. But I don't like guessing the weight.
Mm-mm.
I think that's not safe to do. So I do make sure to bring
It's a
the
good
portable
carnival
little
game.
scale. Yeah.
I mean, if you get really good at guessing weight, you can make money.
I know. I mean, the truth is when you are a home patient, whether PD or HHD, I feel like you're doing more therapy. So hopefully your
Mhm.
gains are not, kilos and kilos, a
Right.
little
Mhm.
better
Yeah.
in general, but
Although
it is
you've
important to maintain.
just reminded me of one last tip, which is if you normally do extended dialysis, a lot of dialysis, much more dialysis than in center, and you travel and you're not able to do that option, for some reason, you have to go in center, it's really, really critical to ramp down on the potassium because that can go very, very badly if, it can be really hard to be in Florida and not want to drink a lot of, fresh orange juice, but it did not go well for some people who tried that. And we want you all to come home healthy.
Yeah. And if I can just add, Beth, thank you for adding that PDF. That wasn't actually the one, but it is helpful too. So it's a nice little checklist. So I think you can use that checklist too. So like I said, there's so many resources out there, right?
Yes.
You have to do maybe a little bit of searching. But we've had updated checklists that are on here and on the website. So I would certainly look for them. And obviously you feel free to reach out to any of us if you have
Oh,
questions. I'm sure we can
absolutely.
help.
We are
Yeah.
always happy to answer questions. So we are just about exactly 1 hour from when we started. So I want to thank everybody who attended and stuck around and attended for part of it and then left and folks in the Facebook group. And I would like to thank our guests, Vanessa and Christina and Jen, and our sponsor for this webinar, Fresenius Medical Care.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for having us.